Welcome to another PGMMV tutorial. Today's video we're going to go over the minimap plugin, and this was an official plugin that was made by the developers of PGMMV. And you can see exactly what it's doing in this little showcase right here. This project is Mira by Little Night Games, and they did a really good job using the minimap. It really brings the game into like a metroidvania style platformer, and you can see that there's some cool options and a few tricks that their developer Hyblitz actually introduced us to. And so we'll show you all these ins and outs of this plugin. So let's get started. All right, so we begin as always with a scene, and in this case we've got 4 scenes. And what we want to do is be able to travel between the scenes and have that minimap pop up. All right, and I just have a player object, so we're just gonna do this sort of from scratch here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to add the plugin. And so we can go to our plugins tab and we can right click here on the list and we can click on add official plugin. Now when this pops up here, we got a few options, and in this case we just want to showcase the minimap one, so that's all we'll select. It comes with some instructions on how to use, and you can click OK and install it. Now from my plugins basics video, we learned that this preview here, so all of this stuff, it's just preview. This is just showing you what is going to be your options when you are adding this as a runtime action. So we don't really have to worry about this other than we can just kind of see, okay, it's going to ask for a width and a height when we go to set this up. The main parameters are over here on the left, okay? So these are the parameters that we actually have to set in order for it to use. There's also this help section if you're stuck somewhere. But let's go to the 2 parameters, the ones that you must have, and that is the image and the font. So the image you'll see is already set to a minimap base. And what happens is when you import this plugin, if you don't already have this or even this default font, what it's going to do is it's going to import the resource for you. So we can see that it was imported into the folder, the export file, and then this. And then we can see that the font was the same thing. Since we didn't have it down here, it imported it as the default font. All right, and so we can change this as we want. If we go and check what the default font looks like, we can see that it doesn't look that bad. I'll just keep it. And then if we go to images, we can see the minimap. And you'll see that there's no particular partition to it, and that's fine. We don't need to mess with the partition. We will see that there's a few different colors of the same area, as well as a pointer down here. And what this is going to allow you to do is to customize it to your game's needs. For instance, I'll just tell you real quick, this dark blue is going to be your undiscovered areas. This lighter blue is going to be areas that you've discovered but you're not currently in. And then this green right here is going to be areas that you're currently in, or scenes, I guess I should say. And then this pointer right here is actually the cursor of the player, which will move around in the map that you're currently in. So later on, we will show an example of editing these colors so that you can see how you could customize them to your needs. All right, so now the last thing that is required for this minimap is portals. And so in the transition tabs, normally it'll pop up here on screen flow. If you click on this portal transfer option, you'll see that we have a few different portals here. All right, and this is for, let's see here, we got scene 2 to 3. So we got scene 2 right here, and we got scene 3 right here. And this red portion is the portal. So if I go left, I'll go into this portal, and then if I go back right, because I have this input selected, I will come back out to this portal. And then we have scene 2 to 4. So similar thing, if I go right, because of this input, I'll come into this portal. And if I go out left, I'll come back in. And I have this set to be a slide link just to the corresponding direction that you're going, and I have it apply the same. So that way both sides will do the same thing. However, the B will slide right, so it knows what to do as far as that goes. But we do need to set one up. I left this open for us to do from scene 1 to 2. So I'm going to add a portal and drag it up to the top because it's going to be scene 1 to 2. And just the way I organized it was just I said 1 is going to 2, and I forgot the arrow because I just let that be known that I can go from 1 to 2 or 2 back to 1, because you can make these one-way portals by using this option over here. Blue will make it only a one-way, or you could click on the red one and it makes it a two-way. Alright, so the first thing we do is we select our scene. So I want to go from scene 1 and I want to go to scene 2. And you got to make sure that the layer is going to be the layer that the player's on, and also the layer that the player you want, or where you want it to end up as well. And then with that, you can come down here and you can just grab it, drag it around, and then you can just size it to be the size, about the size of the entrance. It's not the biggest deal. The main point is that the origin has to be able to touch the portal. All right, and since I know the origin is right here about on this animation, I'll show you here in a minute, I can probably get away with a size, a Y size of about 14, and that should work. But I am going to drag it up a bit, just right there. Right, and now we'll come to scene 2. And same thing. I'll just make it match there. I'll drag it down till about 14, and then I'll place it up there. That's fine. Now the last thing we want to do is you can match directions. I've found that it matches pretty good without this so far, so I haven't had to need it for this little project. I'm going to press down because that's the input I want for this one. And since I have flip the set for portal B, it automatically selected up. So if I was to unselect that, I could click whatever I wanted. And then I just want to go to the AB settings and note that I have apply same settings for BA, so the backwards portal. If I click that off, then I would be able to manually set the B to A portion. But I want them to be the same. And then I want to do a slide link. We want to make sure link downward. Link is different than slide up. What normal slide is going to do is it's just going to slide both scenes up, where a link is going to slide it up in a way to where the player looks like it's naturally transitioning into the scene. I'll show you what that looks like. So I'll do a slide link down and I'll do about like 0.3 seconds. That usually looks good. And then before we test this out, I just want to point out in the animations in the player that this origin is what's going to trigger the portal to activate. So this center from where the two red lines intersect is the origin, and it needs to touch anywhere in this red area for it to activate. So sometimes if you're having issues touching the portal, make sure that your wall detections, are appropriately sized, or that you're either using a floor. Usually in top-down views, a floor option is more preferred because it's more accurate of where the y-axis should be. So let's test if this works now. Click play test and we will go down. I have a feeling something. Okay. So you'll see that it's actually sliding in the opposite direction. All right. And this is actually good. If we go back to the transitions here and go to the AB setting, you'll see that I had it slide down, and I want it to be slide up. And it's kind of confusing because, for instance, I thought I'm walking downward, so I'm going to slide down. But really, when you go downward, this whole scenes are sliding up. So that actually makes more sense. Okay, so now we can try it, and we can see that the origin is about right here or something, and as soon as it touches, boom, it goes down. And now we can slide how we need to go throughout this scene. Okay, so now what we all came here for, the minimap. So in the objects here, I'm going to create an action, and I'm going to call this option call minimap. And I'm going to make it to where when you press A, that's what's going to take you there, and also from walk as well. So now in the minimap, I'm just going to say take over motion. It's going to look weird, but it'll be fine for this. And click other runtime actions, and you'll see that we have this plugins tab up here, and we have the two associated with the plugin. And the first one is show minimap. And you'll see that we got these default settings, and we're just going to keep those just to show exactly what the default settings will look like for you. And with that, we should be able to play test and maybe call the minimap. So we're going to walk around, and actually we need to do one more thing to call it. And that is we have to go, and in our scene, the minimap will not work just by associating it to a object, even if it's a player controllable one. The only way that the minimap will associate is with a starting point, okay? But we have to set up the starting point because currently there's no object associated with that. So we have to go up to settings and into player character management, and under player one, we need to associate an object to it, and that's going to be the player. Now, do note that the minimap will only work with player 1. It will not work with player 2, 3, or 4. And then we'll hit OK. And now we have our character associated to this start point. So now if we play test, it should be able to work now. We can walk around and we can call the minimap. Okay, so as soon as we call it, we see a few things just from default. We see that we have the current scene that we're in, the green, and then we have the other scenes. And you can see that it started to separate portions of that scene based on the tile sheet that it came with, that mini-map sheet that it came with. And you can see that we can see our portal as well right here. And then it says the scene name, so scene 1. Okay, so right now I can't turn it off, but you'll also see that the cursor is moving as I move throughout the scene. And when I go through, I can not call it again because I'm actually stuck in the state. But the minimap will not stay on during a scene transfer. So that's actually a good lesson right there. Okay, so let's go to objects and let's call it off just so that we can get the loop in for our testing here. And we will say that when we go into waiting here, or actually no, we'll make another state. So we'll make another action, again take over motion, and I'll just say hide minimap. And we'll say when I press A again, then we will hide it, and it will go unconditionally to idle. There we go. So now we'll add the hide minimap, and there's only one thing it does. Hit OK, and now we should be able to turn it on and turn it off. So we'll turn it on and turn it off. All right, easy enough. All right, so now let's look at some of our options. Well, I guess first off, I didn't show you when I go into multiple ones here because I couldn't turn it on again. That's right. So you'll see that we have it on, we go through, and then we turn it on again, and now this portion's green, and this portion's lighter blue, but these scenes are dark blue because we haven't visited them. But it does show the portals. And that's something to note, is that the portals will be seen as soon as you enter the scene. So if it's a large scene, you'll be able to see portals even though you haven't technically been in their view yet. So just do note that. And then you can leave, go into here, and now this portion's green. All right, so that makes sense. Now let's dive into some of these options. So in show minimap, we can see that the first one is the width and the height of the minimap area. So if we set that to say 40 by 40, let's just go a little extreme here. We can see that it should get pretty big. There we go. So I'm going to set it back to 24 by 18. And now the next option is going to be to display unknown scenes. So scenes that you haven't been in, those dark blue scenes, do you want those to be seen? Now remember, this only shows portal scenes. This doesn't show scenes that you go to via normal transitions. So do note that too. And so if by default they were on, so if we turn it off and we play test here, you'll see that we can only see the scene that we were in. But as soon as we go into the other scene, we can now see the scenes that we have been in, but are not currently in. All right, let's turn that back on just because I like to see all that we got going here. The portal display of unknown. So what this is telling is that can we see the portals in the unknown scenes as well? You'll notice that by default they were off, and it was true. We couldn't see any of the portals in the scenes we haven't been in. But if we clicked it on and we clicked OK, and we play test here, we can see when we pull up the menu, we now see the portals of a scene that we haven't even been in. So this could be a way to give, like in a metroidvania where it's like, hey, you haven't really been here, but these are how you get there. So it could definitely be an option for you to have these settings here. I'll turn it off just for now. Now the next thing we can do is we can set margins in between the scenes. So if I pad it by just a couple, you don't need much. I think it only goes up to 10. You can see that it padded the scenes in between. So if we go down here and we go like this, you'll see that it just kind of gave it a little bit of spacing. And if we go in here now, we can now see the portal. You'll notice that this one got a little thicker. This one stays skinny because we haven't seen this portal yet, because we have that option on. So yeah, we can see this really coming to life here. Next thing we can do is the opacity of the minimap. And by default, I guess it's at 255. If we turned it to 0, let's just go extreme here. You probably guess what's going to happen. You don't see the minimap. All right, and that's because we turned it completely transparent. So if we had 150, let's say, we could see that it'll be a little bit see-through now as you're going. And by the way, you can pause the game during this minimap. You can slow down the game. If you noticed in the beginning, Mira had the game slowed, which is a really cool effect. So I'm gonna put these back to 0. I'm gonna put this back to 250. I kind of like the in your face opacity there. Now we can do the background. So the background is actually the scene is what it's talking about, the scene. So if we go like this and we press W, you'll see that we can still see that before it used to dim a little bit, and that was that opacity. It was making the scene a little bit transparent there. If we turned it full, and then we press it, it now looks more like you pause the game and you're in a menu. So you could use this as a quick little menu for your minimap. So I'll leave it about 225. That was good. And the last thing that we can do is display of scene name. So we saw that we had the name there. So if we turn this option off, as you can imagine, we walk around and there is no scene name up here. All right, so we've seen exactly how show minimap and hide minimap works. Now let's go into customizing that minimap base. So as you can see, if we open the project folder here, and in our images, we should be able to find the minimap. Here it is. And we can open it in a program, whichever one you choose. I have GIMP, so I'll just use GIMP. And you'll see it comes up here. And we can now start to change the colors. So we can click on red, and we can say fill unknown to be red. And we could change these ones if we want. We could actually even shrink this a little bit. Not really sure. I probably could just grab this thing completely. And first off, we'll flip it just to show that we can flip it, and then we'll scale it a little bit, make it a little smaller. But then we'll center it right about there. It's about a 24 by 18 cell, I think. I had the notes here somewhere. It's a 24 by 18 is what it is, the pointer, by default. All right, and then I'll just add it right there. I will click on export because I'll have to export a new one. This is usually what you have to do here. I'll say new minimap. I'll export it. Go back to PGM, resources, and I'll just add a new one actually, yeah. So new image, new minimap here. We can go to plugins, and then we can select the new minimap. And now if we were to play test, we get the new minimap. So you can see it kind of aliases a little bit, so you'd want to make sure that the icon looked good, but you can change the icon, and as well as you can change the color of these non-scene portals. Now the trick that Highblitz used in Mira to have another color associate for like a special area, like a save point, for instance, is what he did. He did it by, and real quick, I'm just going to change it back to the original minimap here. He did it by going into the transitions here, and in the portals here, you'll notice the portals show up red, right? When we see inside the minimap, they show up red. So his idea was, why can't we make a portal become the size of a scene, a non-usable portal, and then we can associate that one as always red? Because remember, we only get the three options, right? Current scene, a light blue for a scene you've seen, and then this dark blue for scenes you haven't seen. So what if you wanted to associate certain points? Well, this could be a way of doing it. So let's say that a scene, well, let's add a portal, and let's say scene 3, we want this portion right here, this first half, to just have the color red associated with it. We can do that. We can just drag the portal to be this whole area. The one thing that we just need to realize is that we need to put it on a different layer than the player. All right, so since we are on layer 1, we'll put it on layer 2. The other thing is that you have to have a B. So we'll just say scene 3 as well. And then it doesn't really matter what we do with that portal. It can stay right there for all we care, because we're actually not doing anything. We're just setting the portal there. So if we were to playtest, oh, and by the way, we have to make sure that we just put it in a portal or in a different layer. And maybe by clicking these numbers, it would be enough. But I just put it in a different layer just to be safe. So a lot of fail safe in this, right? So we will press the button. Now we haven't seen it yet, so I don't think it will show, but maybe when we see it, there you go. So now we can see the portal from now on, and if we leave, we can see that it also shows us the portal. Now, it was definitely a little big. I would probably have to make it smaller, but you can see how you could keep key areas still being shown on your map. And so that is something that was pretty clever, I thought. And one thing that you could utilize this for is, say you had a Zelda-like where you did not have the compass, right, that shows you all the rooms. You could have the first show minimap with whatever object is calling this, because you wouldn't call this from the player like normal unless you did, but you could have a couple options of which one it goes to based off if you have the compass or not. But you could have it off initially, and so you, as we were seeing, you can't see the portal. But then as you get the minimap, you then start calling a version, or you go to an action that calls it with it on, and then when you're playtesting, you can now see the portal. So there's your compass, right? And that would be just as simple as, a link condition. You get a compass, turns a switch on or a variable or however, and then it would lead to a different call minimap. So you'd have a different like call minimap with compass, something like that. And yeah, so that's it for this video. We learned a couple things. We set up a portal, we set up a player one object, starting point, and then we learned how to use the minimap, show and hide the minimap, as well as edit the base and give a little spice with, like, say, a special area or something like that. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.